Honorable Ambassador Ron Adam, we are
Yes.
pleased to be with you today to interview you about different issues concerning the bilateral relations between Uganda and Israel. You have been working for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel for
Yes.
many years,
Yes.
and in different departments.
Yes.
So, since you started representing Israel in Uganda, what did you observe in Uganda that was new to you, that you expected to see? What is your impression?
So, of course, I didn't know Africa at all. Next, maybe you will ask me about my career, but I've never been in Africa. But my heart was in Africa because I dealt with development, with the agenda of development many years. I was dealing with the UN and its agenda, if it's MDGs before 2000, and then the SDGs, and drafting them. I was dealing with the UN many years, and I had this in mind that sometime I have to be in Africa. So I expected, when I landed the first time, I didn't know much about Rwanda. I mean, I read a bit, but when you land here, of course, you see that it's not really Africa. So no offense to Africa, but I thought I landed in Switzerland because I spent 4 years in Switzerland, and I looked around. I saw it's cleaner than Geneva, where I lived, and I was surprised. Yes, because the image of Africa, and you see on TV, Addis Ababa. I don't want, no offense, of course, to anyone, or any other city which is very big and very busy, many people, not so clean. But here I landed. I thought I, by mistake, landed in Geneva. The hills, the clean, the organization, everything is in order, everything is in place. So this was, but this, then I learned after 2 years, I can tell you, this is the impression of everyone. It was my impression, but then everyone come here and say that this is the impression. And it's amazing. It's very good because it attracts. It's good. It's part of the vision, of course, of the president, that you land in a place which is amazing, clean, and organized. Of course, the whole country is clean, but Kigali is different than the rest of the country. But then it attracts more people to come, if it's tourism, if it's business people. So it's good that the welcoming is so welcoming.
Yes. I started asking you that question because, as you said, many people from outside Africa, when they reach Africa, they see it as a messy, as somewhere where there is chaos. But according to you, your impression was cleanliness, organization, security.
Yes.
Yes. Now, sir, can you please describe yourself to our readers? Who is Mr. Ron Adam? Your background? Yes.
Yes. So I was born in the desert.
Negev?
Yes. My parents moved to the north when I was young, and so most of my life. Haifa. Yes. So you've been around?
I read a lot about Israel.
Yes. So I was born in Beersheba, which is the capital of the Negev, where Abraham was settling in the biblical time, and he found wells, he found water. That's why he was settling there. And so I was born there. We moved to Haifa, and that is where I grew up. So Haifa is practically my city. And after school, I went to the army. I was 4 years in the army. Army is compulsory, as you know. It's a good phase between high school and life, between high school and university. Maybe we will relate to it later on. thing that I recommend to Rwandans. So I was in the army
You
3
are
years.
recommending Rwanda
We'll talk about it. It's a very important phase in growing up, in becoming independent, in becoming a leader, in more and more things which we can relate to later on. But so I did the army. I signed 1 year to stay, and so I was in the Air Force. It was very good military service. I was very pleased. And then I started my studying in Haifa University. I studied political science and history, and I did 3 degrees. The third one I did recently, a few years ago, and I started my work as a journalist. I was a journalist in some newspapers. I was night editor, and then I also was a spokesperson of the mayor of Haifa. And then I joined the foreign ministry. Since then, in the foreign ministry, I had, I would say, 3 parts of the career. The first part, I was dealing with the peace process with the Palestinians. Yes,
That's
I was
a
very important part, and I learned a lot. I was one of the assistants of Shimon Peres at the time when he was foreign minister, and it was very interesting part, Oslo agreement, and then the interim agreement, implementation of the agreement. I was a secretary of a committee, which was the joint committee between Israel and Palestine. And I had my contact partner from Palestinian Authority to implement the agreement, both sides. So we were the monitoring committee, and I was the secretary of the committee.
Yes.
It was very initial steps of my career. Then my second part of the career was UN. So I did 5 years in New York. I was in the General Assembly, 5th Committee, which is the budgetary committee. I learned a lot about the UN at the time.
In the UN, you represented Israel?
Yes, I was representing Israel, and in the budgetary administrative committee. And that is where you learn about the budget, you learn about the inside of the UN, how it operates.
Yes.
And what is the priority, what are the priorities, of course. We were at the time also drafting the MDGs, so it was a very interesting time. Then I was at headquarters, I was director of the UN for many years, and then I went to Geneva. I spent 4 years also agencies and all the UN agenda of development and environment and climate change started, etc. And then I went to the UN many times to help drafting the SDGs, but at the same time I started my third part of my career, which was energy. So I became an expert in energy because of some reasons of finding the natural gas in Israel. So I was in charge on looking for markets for our gas abroad. And then after that I came here. So 2 years ago, actually, in 1st of May, I opened the embassy.
Yes.
It's more or less about me.
Yeah, sure. For those people who have never traveled to Israel, can you tell them the kind of the country is Israel? It's a state, it's a nation, but not known to each and everyone. For those ones who have never traveled there or who have never read about Israel, what is Israel? We have heard it is a desert. It has a big part of it being a desert. How do you survive?
So, first of all, it's no longer desert because we developed it, and now you grow everything there. Because we have irrigation systems, we have very smart and modern agriculture, and we turn the desert into a place that you grow agriculture, you grow horticulture, you grow fruits and vegetables, you grow dates. We are the biggest exporter for dates, if you mention the desert. But the desert is now it's only a third of the country. So the 2 other thirds are normal hills and mountains and green areas, and yes, this is the place of the Bible. I would say this is the story of the Old Testament. You can find everything written, almost everything. I would say maybe the first book of the Old Testament that is
Kings,
more.
Deuteronomy.
No. It's the first book.
Yes.
The creation of the world. This is more general. This is more mythology, I would say, Jewish mythology. But then the rest of the books you can find the places where people were living, people were walking, people were working, and leading the place, leading the country. If it's Abraham or it's Moses or whoever is mentioned. And so you can go on the footsteps of these people. You can go to the villages and the towns they built. Of course, Jerusalem is more than 3,000 years old. It was created first and foremost by the King David. You can find the King David city, and then Solomon, who built the first temple. You can find it nearby. It's still, the remnants are there. A lot of archaeology, but also modern, of course. If we jumped 2,000 years later or 3,000, so Solomon built the first temple 1,000 years before before Christ BC, and then of course the second temple was built during the years until the first century by Herod, the king from Rome, and he of course built the second temple, which part of it still exists.
Yes.
So you can walk
Is he the one who expelled Jews from Herod?
Yes, he's the one. And that is when Jesus Christ, of course, was born and was practicing his belief and his knowledge and his special, I would say, forces and leadership. And that is when Christianity was created later on, but it was the first part of it. And you can walk now on the footsteps of Jesus Christ, of his followers, if it's in the Galilee Sea, if it's Jerusalem, if it's other places that he was. And of course, since then, Jews stayed around, but were expelled, most of them, to all over the world. So it's a very interesting place where Jews starting to come back in the 19th century and building this new state. Jews coming back in 1880, I would say, the end of 19th century, and created this new state, which was born in 48 officially. It's a country where so many conquerors were. The last ones were the British Mandate. The Brits were there between 1917 and 1947. But before that, we have the Turks, we have the Romans, we have the Greeks, we have the Arabs, we have all of them. And all of them left some remnants. Anyway, so it's a state of history, of the stories of the Bible and other stories, but also a very modern state. If you go to Tel Aviv, you more or less feel like Manhattan now. That's what we are.
Yeah, sure.
And we are, of course, the startup nation.
Yeah, but when we come back to the Bible, most of Jews, they don't believe in the Bible. We believe in the Talmud. The Talmud and the Bible are they the same book?
Oh no, you're completely mixing. So I don't know if we need to talk about it. It's too complicated.
Yes.
Most of the Jews who live in Israel believe in the Bible. Most, I would say 80%.
Yes.
They are not practicing. Most of them not practice Judaism commands, which is a lot. It's a matter of nutrition, a matter of Shabbat, etc.
Yes.
But 80 to 90% believe what they read in the Bible, and I'm talking about the Old Testament. Yes, unlike the New Testament, where the Christians is the books. But many Christians also believe in the Old Testament. It's the first part of what they call now the New Testament. It's the first part of the history of Christianity. So anyway, most of the Jews believe, and Talmud came later, 3rd, 4th century. It's the explanations of the Bible. It's further commandments and beliefs and things you have to do, to eat, to practice. It's to say that they don't believe. I would say much more people believe in the Bible than in the rest of the books, Talmud and others.
Yeah.
But it's very I don't think the readers will be interested in that.
Yeah, thank you.
It's too complicated.
Yeah, sure. So what about the political system? Because you have like two main political parties, the Likud and the other one called Blue and White.
No. So the main political parties historically is Labour and Likud. These are the, I would say, conservatives and the liberals. Liberals are more to the left, like Labour, and conservatives are more to the right. Yes, this is the main blocks. But there were changes recently. So we have new, the changes came because of some part of the people who want to replace the prime minister. That has nothing to do with conservative or liberal, which is the main blocks, which are the main blocks. It has to do with pro-Netanyahu or anti-Netanyahu. So these kind of parties were established in order to bring a change, according to them, to change the ruling party, to replace it, and these are now new parties that we have, Blue and White that you mentioned, but we have much more parties. We have about, last elections we had to choose out of 40 parties. Out of 40 parties, 12 got into the parliament, and it's very difficult for one person to form a coalition and to form a government. It's very complicated because out of 120 members of Knesset, you need 61 in order to form a government. This is the coalition system. In order to rule, you need 61 seats that support you if you want to form a government. So for the last 4 elections, no one could do it. That's why we go from election to election, because of stagnation between the two, I would say, two parts of the parliament. The part that want to have Netanyahu to stay, and the part who want him to be replaced.
What is the role of the president of Israel? Because most of the time we see Mr. Netanyahu representing the nation, dealing with serious matters concerning the country. What is the role of the president in Israel?
It's more like we took the system of the British, so it's more or less like the Queen. One of the things he has to do is to nominate a person who will form the government and give him officially the task of forming a government. So he called someone, he said, you have my mandate to form a government. If he does it in 45 days, fine. If he doesn't, it goes to another person. If the other person cannot do it, we go to elections. That's how it is. It's more or less the same as the UK. Then another thing that he's responsible is for pardons. So that's more or less what he's in charge, and he's the head of state. He's the non-political figure. He represents all citizens of Israel.
Citizens.
Yes.
He doesn't belong to any political
party. No.
party.
No. Usually he belonged in the past. Usually a guy who is elected to be president, he's elected by the parliament. Usually he is from the parliament in the past, so he was in a party. But not always. Many times Shimon Peres was our previous president. Of course he was from the Labour Party. Before that there was a president who was from Likud. Usually, as I said, it's a political figure who is no longer practice politics. He represents everyone. But there were cases that we had a scientist as a president. We had an archaeologist as a president. An academic like high rank person. So we had other presidents who were elected from the outside of politics.
Yes. This is a part concerning the historical and the political sides of Israel. Now, So you told us you have been negotiating issues related to Palestine. So
I was not negotiating. I
Mhm.
was an officer.
officer.
I was not negotiating.
Okay. So tell us. Today there is tension between Israel and Palestine.
Yes.
What does that involve? What is the causes of this current crisis? And do you think there will be peace between Palestinians and Israel?
So, cause is not an issue. There will always be some excuse for, from time to time, open fire on Israel. So, this time it was a combination of things that happened. It was the Eid al-Fitr, who is now, it was the Jerusalem Day, the day of liberation and unification of Jerusalem, which we celebrate every year. But it never happened this day in the past, it's just an excuse. But mostly it was the elections that were cancelled. There was meant to be elections in the Palestinian Authority, in Gaza and in West Bank. But these elections were cancelled by the leader of the Palestinians, Abu Abbas, and Abu Mazen. Mahmoud Abbas is his name, and he cancelled it because of his own reasons. He saw probably the Hamas is going to win, and he decided to cancel. And they were not happy, so they had to put their dominance, they had to do something in order to show that they exist and how important they are, Hamas from Gaza. So the elections, what was the fear of Abu Mazen is that they will be elected to all West Bank. And of course, if they won the elections in West Bank, it would have been bad, both for him but also for Israel. But regardless, they opened fire, they opened riots, they killed some people in the West Bank, Jews, they killed the terror activities in Jerusalem outside, and there were riots on the Mount, of the Temple Mount. So they provoked the whole area, the whole region. And of course, it's part of it is coming from Iran. Iran is giving the instructions. Now, if you ask me why Iran doing it, I cannot really tell you because I don't know. And the only thing I can tell you is that Iran want to dominate the Middle East with extreme Islam. And that is the beginning and the end of our conflict because Gaza is not ruled by Israel. Gaza is free. They had the chance many years ago when we left Gaza to build the Hong Kong of the Middle East. That were the expectations. Instead, they went to conflict. They built tunnels under
I remember in 2014,
yes,
the protective eagle operation that
yes,
the Israelis did in
yes,
Gaza.
Yes. So every time there is, doesn't have to be really specific excuse. And if you ask me about the solution, yes, Israel is in favor of two-state solution still. It's not so easy now because the partner from the other side is weak. And Hamas is no partner for us as long as he see the destruction of the state of Israel as his target. And if he takes over West Bank, it will be chaotic for us. So they have to decide to board the train of peace, which other Arab countries are already traveling in, which is, of course, Egypt from 78, and Jordan from 94, and recently Gulf countries, Morocco and others. And Palestinians are staying behind, unfortunately. They have to decide, finally, to accept us in the region.
So, for as long as Palestinians or Iranians don't accept Israel as a state in itself, there will be no peace. Is that true?
Yeah, you can say it.
So for them to end the conflict, they have to accept Israel as a nation.
Yes, as a nation who is staying there forever, who live side by side with the Arabs in peace. That's what we are doing with Egypt, for example, now. We have good relations with Egypt right now. We help them, they help us. We work together, there is trade. At the end of the month, Egypt Air will start flying to Tel Aviv again. And it's very good news.
Yes.
And Egypt Air is flying here, by the way. So I invite Rwandans to board Egypt Air, to fly to Cairo, to do very nice tour in Cairo, and then come to Israel.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Now let's jump from the Israelis part to Africa's, the Israelis' interest to Africa.
Yes.
Israel has been absent in Africa for a while, but now you are making a strong return to Africa. Why?
Let's start with the fact that we were in Africa in the 60s. We started in Africa, and we started our agency for international cooperation, which is called Mashav. We started in 1958, and the start was in Africa. Golda Meir was here, our prime minister, the woman prime minister, who ruled the country for quite many years. She established our agency. She came to Africa, to many, many countries. She was foreign minister at the time. Later she became prime minister. And this is the legacy of her. First issue that was dominated by our Mashav, our agency, was empowerment of women and gender issues. No one called it gender issues, but empowerment of women. And this was the first sector we really promoted in Africa. Since then, this agency is maybe 60 years old already, and we were in Africa for many years. Then in 73, countries broke the relations with Israel. And since
Can you remind us why?
73 was the war with the Arabs. And somehow they related to it, they supported it. Many of them supported the destruction of Israel. But they came to senses later on and started new relations in the 90s. And with everyone he had relations, also with Rwanda. We didn't have an embassy here, but we had an embassy in, I think it was Kenya. And they sent someone here as a second secretary. But even with Rwanda, there were break of relations for many years. Anyway, we came back, not so recently, I would say 20 years already. But the Prime Minister came to visit, and leaders came to visit Israel, including Rwanda. And of course, everyone knows that we need to come here. Everyone is here. All countries are here. I mean, those who, if it's through the agencies like DFID, like USAID, like the Dutch,
Japan.
Belgium, Japan, Korea, they're all here. And the Chinese are coming to build infrastructure, and Russia coming to build whatever they build. And so we are here too.
Yeah, so are Israel.
Yes.
Okay. So your interest in Uganda is based on what? Is it because it is a small country but a strategic one?
So first of all, we opened this new embassy. There was no embassy here ever, and it was the 11th embassy in Africa. The last embassy we opened was in Ghana in 2012. And then here in 2019. Why? First of all, it's because of the good chemistry and relations between the head of states, Netanyahu and President Kagame, but also the history. We share history, we share similarity of our genocide and the Holocaust. People suffered, very well. Unfortunately, Jews suffered. My mother was a Holocaust survivor. My father was a Holocaust survivor. Both of them, I'm second generation survivors. But it's not an issue, personal issue, but I'm just mentioning
Sure.
my special interest. But then, it's the history, is the common fact that it's a landlocked We are also landlocked in a way. We have the sea, of course,
Yes, you
which
have
is
the sea.
amazing. But we are surrounded by.
The sea
We are an
is-
island, let's say.
Yes.
We are an island like you.
Yeah.
You're an island among countries which are surround you. You're previously friends, but now not so much. There are, problems in the relations, let's say, and we have the same. And this is a nation with a vision to be a hub of Africa in many things, and we relate to it. We think we can do a lot to share our experience as a nation which was built from ashes and got far
Yes.
using the human resources
Human resources.
and the brain. Yes, until we found natural resources took many years, but we had to use our brain and use our human resources in order to get far, and that is exactly the case here.
Okay. What are the key areas of cooperation that Israel has with Uganda?
So, of course, key area is the area that is key here, which is agriculture and water management. It's the biggest challenge here. Of course, it's the biggest employer. I would say the biggest part of economy, and the biggest part of the population who are farmers, of course. So agriculture is the issue. We have here the biggest farm that Mashav, our agency, built around the world. It's here in Morindi. It's open for farmers to come and learn and be experienced in modern agriculture. Be experienced not only modern agriculture, but be experienced in the ways how to use small land more efficiently.
Yes.
And that is what we give, we train, we show. Also how to irrigate, how to use water. Some ideas of how to preserve water from winter to summer, from wet season to dry season. Things that people have to see that it's possible. I would say innovation and ICT is the second area, and then of course we have many more areas that we are cooperating. If it's the Holocaust or genocide memorials and second generation, etc. Also tourism and health and education, of course. So all these areas. And if you ask me about projects, of course, I can tell you.
Yes. Go on, sir.
Yes, so we have many projects that are ongoing. I would mention the thing that we inaugurated recently, which is a STEM center. We inaugurated it in Kist, but we're going to open 8 STEM centers around the country. The idea behind it is that we use the facility of a university. We sign an agreement with the university. When I say we, is the organization that was founded by a Jewish person from New York. He is the founder and he gives the donation. He came to me. He said, "You're here. I want to come." I invited him, welcomed him, and we are working together to open 8 STEM centers. And so his idea is that it is located in university, but high schools from around the university are benefiting. So children from high schools will come and use the STEM center. That's the idea. And so STEM centers, we're going to do 8 around the country. Each STEM center is around the $100,000 investment on robots, on computers, on 3D printer, and many other things that have to do with electricity and physics, chemistry, and other experiments, etc. This is STEM center. I would say in the areas of space and cyber, we are now cooperating between the agencies the space agency of Rwanda and Israel, and the cyber directorate, the cyber from both sides. So you are in the process of building these institutions, and we are helping here. There is a nice project on space. I hope it will be matured. Israel invited only Rwanda as a partner to participate in the program of getting to the moon. And we're looking for the best students of schools, high school, secondary school, to present an experiment that they want to do on the moon. And the satellite will be Israeli satellite. So we invited Rwanda to participate in this very nice project. And there will be a competition. It's a big it's a long process.
The only African candidate?
It's only African country who is invited. And so it's a nice cooperation. And cyber, I can mention that the Israeli company Elbit is going to open here a cyber academy very soon, and to train and to build capacity on cyber issues for Rwandan's youth and engineers. And so the cooperation between Elbit and RDB and Ngali is now already signed and started, and it is a very good project. I mentioned the genocide issue. I have two main projects that I do on this. One is with cooperation with Rwanda We Want, that we finance conferences on second generation transmission of trauma. People have to be aware. Me, I'm second generation. Many people are here, young people. People have to understand that they might be affected genetically even by the trauma of the parents. 30 or 40% of second generation are affected. They have to be aware, and they can be treated or healed.
Yes.
By many things, by talking, by sharing stories, which is very important, etc. So we do these events. Psychotherapy, you know, and so it's very important. It's also important for the generation of the new, for the establishing a new generation, coexistence, you know, etc., etc. And also I am happy to be part of this GRG project of essays and poems writing that we did last week, and it was very good. I mentioned already the biggest farm in the world that we have of Mashab. It's here, as I said. It's a very big project which is ongoing. We are going to do a lot of issues relating to use of urban agriculture, water management. We will bring here, unfortunately we lost a year. So I'm here 2 years, but 1 year was lost. But hopefully we'll start bringing experts here too, to help in many projects the government is doing, if it's by the Ministry of Agriculture or by the Ministry of Environment, or by other ministries, local communities. I was happy to donate 20 cows to a Nyamasheke district, and I'm going to do the same thing now soon with 20 cows in Gisagara. Yes.
In the South Province.
The South Province. Yes. And so we were in the West Province, now we'll be in the South Province. And and so many more, I would say, on the health sector. My dream is to bring people who will build a high-level regional hospital with high-level doctors, which will give services to those in Rwanda who need, and not go outside to get treatment, and also bring people from the region. We can do it.
Yes.
It's a matter of an investor, which I'm in the process of looking for, and good doctors, training. It's a big project. I hope to do it with some partners. I cannot mention names, but I have some partners who are interested. And also the issue of digitalization of the health system, of hospitals, you know, connecting hospitals, connecting the whole system, so the individual patient will be welcomed everywhere he goes with all the information about him ready, so he doesn't have to start everything from scratch every time he goes to hospital. So this is a system which exists in Israel, and that is why we were chosen to be the first country who is completely immunized. We're very digitalized, and this immunization project was successful. In Israel, we are no longer carrying a mask.
Yeah, sure.
And we are COVID-free, which is amazing. Almost, let's say, a few people are getting it every day still, but it's like a normal flu already. Sure. And it's amazing. Everything is open. So, and having said all that, of course, we continue with our security projects and the cooperation on security of this country.
Okay. So, regarding the agriculture, you said you are planning to bring more experts in agriculture, and as we know, Rwanda has a lot of lakes, a lot of water, flowing. Don't you see this is a privilege we have, but we don't exploit it at the level it
Yes. Yes, of course, you know very well, and we know very well, and of course we try to do whatever we can. I'm happy that I think, according to our recommendation, a Rwandan water board was established. According to our experience, also an Israeli water board was established a few years ago. It's called Israeli Water Authority, which connects different stakeholders, different institutions that have to do with water. So everyone sits around one table talking about water. If it's WASAC and the like, if it's the Ministry of Environment, if it's the Ministry of Infrastructure, if it's other stakeholders like Ministry of Agriculture and others, and think together what to do better in water management, how to use better the rainwater, how to preserve better underground water, how to prevent dirt coming into the rivers, and also connecting villages, of course, at the end, by drilling a well in villages, by putting pipelines. It's a big project. It's time-consuming and, of course, money-consuming, but it can be done. So we, of course, are aware of that.
Yes.
We don't drop even one drop. We don't waste one drop of water that we have. We have a 500 milliliter a year, and you have 2,000, so 4 times the same. We grow all of the whole year. We have summer with 6 months summer and 6 months more or less winter. It's unlike here, but it's better here because it's cut into 4 more or less. But in the summer we grow also everything. And yes, it's a matter of economy, a strong economy that we are, of course, richer country, but it's doable. It's the matter of financial planning.
Yes.
Because you have benefits if you do the right thing anyway. It's so in the process. It's in the pipeline, let's say.
Yeah. As a diplomat,
Yes.
Do you think Uganda plays a significant role in the regional and international scene as a diplomat who have been, reading about Rwanda, or who spent some months, if not a year, in Rwanda? Do you think this country of ours is a player in the regional politics or at the international level?
Yes. Rwanda seeks to be a leader of Africa, at least of East Africa, of course, but also establishing organizations that the president is leading, and is leading organizations that were recently established, but also those who exist. And you compete of hosting headquarters of organizations or anything, and new organizations and also current one. So, of course, Rwanda is a very important player in the African politics. You don't need me to tell you that, but I'm telling you because you asked, and it's because of your leader. It's very simple. And your leader is well known, is very respected in the continent. And we are looking for him also to lead Israel into the continent, I would say.
Okay. So it means Israel is assessing whether our president can represent Israel's interest in African
Exactly.
continent.
One thing that we wish to have this year is to get the observer status in the African Union. So we're working with all countries in Africa in order to get this status. We had it in the past, but we were expelled by Gaddafi at the time, and now we want to get in. And of course, we look for Rwanda as a very good friend and partner to do their best in order to fulfill this.
Yes. Rwanda is undergoing what we call 100 days to commemorate the genocide against the Tutsi. And Israel has almost the same history with us, the Holocaust. Do you think those who deny genocide will live forever, or denial is something temporary that lasts for like 10, 20, 30 years?
Well, it depends on you. It depends on you if you talk about it, if you teach it, if you share the story, and there will be no denial. And if you keep it to yourself and you don't tell your children and your neighbors and your friends, and because it's not easy to tell, it's not easy even to write, but you can write if it's easier for you, and to share your story, your faces that you saw, the specific event that you went through, you as a person, you as Jean-Pierre, and all the rest, you have to share your story. And if you share your story, there will be no denial, and that's what we did during the years. There are much less Holocaust denial than it was in the past. And to share the story is also good for healing. It's not easy again, personally, of course. And it's not easy to teach genocide. Who is the teacher? What is his interest? Who are in the class? Which children are in the class? Of course, we are one nation now. We are Rwanda nation, but still, we have parents as children, and it's not easy. But it needs to be done. It needs to be included in the curricula, and it needs to be taught. Because as I understand, also many teachers prefer not to do it because the situation doesn't let them. But it needs to be done. So the more you speak about it, the more you teach in the university, in high school, even in primary, but gently, doesn't have to be very early, and then you will be no denying of genocide.
But deniers are always there, even if
There are deniers because of political reasons. They think they can change the government here from outside, of course. It's ridiculous, and yes, you need to handle them somehow, as you do, and that's it. It's a political issue, it's a personal sometimes issue. No one can, of course, you can also deny the genocide by changing the story in a way, or saying that it was a war, etc. But of course, everyone knows the truth, and the truth needs to be told and again and again stated and mentioned in 100 days, but every day. Yeah. So it's a matter of time, I believe.
Yes.
And deniers see that they cannot do much. Those who are against your country cannot do much.
They are at the weak side.
Yeah, and you have to be strong, as we have became, a strong economy, strong in security, and then you will survive.
Yes. So you mentioned about the transition between leaving the high school and...
yes, so I will say a few words about that. I believe in education, the most important thing. The thing is, you lack of skilled people who finish high school or university, skilled in engineering, in still, even though you have TVET and you have the vision of STEM centers, etc., but still university is very slow in preparing the youth to work in international companies. So we always ask ourselves, what's come first? The international companies will come, and then you will create skilled people through the companies, maybe as a vocational training, or you wait for skilled manpower, and then the international companies will come. So we had this experience, but we are different in our culture, and that is what I wanted to mention to you. First of all, we finish school, high school, we go for 3 years to the army. So I'm not saying you need an army, which is compulsory, but I do say you need at least 1 year or 2 years of national service, working in hospitals, working in the elderly, working with people with disabilities, leaving your house, leaving your parents, become independent, become a grown-up, become a grown-up person, a man, a woman, with responsibilities, accountabilities, and responsibility for the others, wherever you work, as a national service. Or, yes, you can change your system and have an army, which is compulsory. Our army makes us a different people. Our army prepare the people, the youth, to life, make us independent, make us thinking outside the box, make us more innovative, finding solutions, even taking risks. And that is what we lack here. We have the culture of being afraid to fail, being afraid of making mistakes, and being afraid of thinking outside the box, taking risks. And this is the enemy for innovation. If you don't take risks, there will be no innovation. And if you don't fail, failure is part of success. Not only part of success, essential part of success. You have to fail in order to be better, to learn from your mistakes and be better. And that's what I'm saying we learned to do. We help those people who fail, we support them, we let them fail in order to learn. All the startups, all the billionaires, people that sold so many applications and patents and ideas in Israel, failed. All of them. All of them failed. I'm assuring you, I can sign at least once or twice. They didn't give up. They learned from the failure and they became better. So that's what I'm saying. It has to do with the culture, it has to do with mindset, and it has to do with growing up. Doing a pause between high school and university. Don't go directly. It's not good. You're actually sending children to the university. It's a continuation of the school. And there lies the problem of education, of skilled people. So you can invite international companies, you can help them, tell them to help you, and they are coming slowly. Of course, each company comes and it will make the difference. But you can invite them, they will hire, employ the bright people. Don't send them directly to university. If you're bright, send your 12th grade to private sector immediately. If you're like coding academy, you produce 180 bright young children. Don't send them to the university immediately. This is a mistake. Use your time there to produce leaders, to produce people who think, who manage themselves better, who are empowered, who are self-confident. Build self-confidence. Build them to speak in front of people, to know how to sell their product. You can be bright, you can know what you want, but then if you cannot talk to people in the level of your eyes, if you cannot talking to public, you will never sell your product. And they are very bright people, children. So prepare them for life. Don't make them robots. Teach them self-confidence. Teach them self-management, even managing others in the teamwork, etc. All these are very important. That's what we learn in the army. And if you don't have army, so do it in this high school and then take a year and do something else. Take you do your Itorero, but do something bigger and longer. I don't know. Change the mindset of children, make them independent.
Before we end up with
Yes,
our
please.
interview, sir, try to describe Rwanda in 20 or 25 years ahead. How will Rwanda look like in the near future?
I
according
think
to you?
25 years ahead, we will reach $10,000 per capita GDP. I think it will be a green place, no fossil fuel, no electricity just from solar and hydro, and it's a clean place. It's with many international companies are here. Industrial zone is full with operation, with manufacturing, with made in Rwanda. Vaccines will be made here, and among other things, and a lot of production, a lot of export, and the mice will be very, very developed. It will be, of course, the biggest center in Africa for conferences, exhibitions, and meetings, and this is where we're going.
Israel will play a role in that.
Of course.
Yes. We thank you, sir.
Thank you.